Welcome to an uplifting dialogue, stories about how the arts powerfully transform life with Susan Brender. This is V for Vitality.
This show has been made possible by the support of Plantronics, an endpoint company celebrating 50 years of innovation. I'm Susan Brender, and this is V for Vitality.
Tovah Feldshuh most recently starred on Broadway as Irina Gut Updike in Irina's Vow, for which she received the BroadwayWorld.com Theater Fans' Choice Award for Best Leading Actress in a Play. For her work on the New York stage, from Yentl to Lend Me a Tenor to Golda's Balcony, she has earned 4 Tony nominations for Best Actress and won 4 Drama Desk Awards. Boy, that's saying a lot for this person, because she is indeed one of the most special actresses we have on Broadway today. And soon she's going to be in another play which she's going to talk about. I want to welcome Tovah Feldshuh to our show, V for Vitality. Hi, Tovah.
Hi, how are you, Susan?
I'm just fine. I am so excited to have you on. You know, one of the things, Tovah, that I remember, when I saw you playing Golda Meir, I said to myself, this is an amazing person. She can spot on make Golda Meir stand right before my eyes. And boy, would I have liked to have had Golda Meir stand before my eyes, but I had Tovah. What was that like for you to play that in that show?
Well, it was a great honor. And also I think with any historic role that an actor is gifted with, if they give us a great historic role, it's a question of your diligence. I mean, I've played Katharine Hepburn, Stella Adler, Sarah Bernhardt, 3 queens of Henry VIII, of course, Golda Meir, and it's a question of studying that human being and seeing how you can embody her, not imitate her, but embody her, bring her back to her own vitality, if you were, in honor of the name of your show. And what is the elan vital of a human being? What is the Hebrew word is neshama? What is that which is eternal about the spirit of that particular human being? And the actor's job is to find that and relegate yourself to second place and relegate her beingness to first place while you play her.
Now, you talked about the word spirit and to relegate yourself to the spirit of the person. You have a kind of spirit that is unique in a sense, because in some ways you are just Tovah, and in other ways you are a fabulous actor, and in other ways you are funny, you are serious. Where does all of that come from? Tell me about Tovah.
Well, not to be hyper-Freudian about it, but a lot of it comes from the primary imprinting of our parents upon us, of our home environment in those early years. I had parents who loved to laugh. As a matter of fact, when I end this interview tonight, and I've had a full day of rehearsal of Volpone by Ben Jonson, which is a social satire written in the beginning of the 17th century, and it's very dense and it's wonderful, hard work. But I'm going to go see the performers tonight on Broadway just to laugh. So my parents valued laughter, and my mother's going to be 102, and as she says, she has chocolate and laughter every day. My mother's from the Bronx. So she's very, very funny. She says, I don't know how I'm going to die. You got any suggestions? So she's full of hell and full of laughs. And my father, too, enjoyed the party of life, the parade of life, enjoyed traveling, enjoyed speaking several languages. He was just a wonderful parent and very, very influential in my life. He was a litigator, and I pretty much played him when I was on Law and Order.
Isn't that funny? Because a litigator, I mean, I've never found litigators to be terribly funny, but somehow or another, there must have been something in their blood. Now, maybe that dates back a little bit. A series of litigators in the family. What do you think?
I don't know. He was a litigator, and before that, his father was a silk merchant, and it was. What did they say? That the immigrants came to America for a better life. Their children became doctors and lawyers, and the children of those doctors and lawyers and professors became artists. We could afford to become artists, and I really owe my parents a tremendous amount, not just for the laughter, but for the idea that I was totally entitled to pursue my dreams.
Now, let's talk about your dreams for the moment. So let's start from the beginning of your dreams to today, because obviously this has been going on for a while. This is not a new thing to you. You're pursuing your dreams for years, correct?
Well, my profession of choice was pretty much Broadway, the New York stage, and then film and television, and I've been able to make a living on Broadway and in film and television for 37 years. So I'm very grateful that I'm not waiting on tables or doing some adjunct profession that really doesn't delight me. And I hope to direct. I do produce now. I own the rights to certain pieces and do them all over the world. And I've also been asked to direct, which I haven't formally done, but I'm probably going to accept such an offer. And I teach at Yale every summer. But it's all within the given profession of the theater and the transformational actor. How does a person change into another person?
Now, that's an interesting thing, because you mentioned that certainly you've been involved in theater, as we all know, and also on screen and on television. And so I know many actors talk about their experiences and the differences in their experience, but I'm curious how you see the three different genres, if you will, and which you really do love the most.
I love them all, but I'm used to the rehearsal process of the theater, where you get weeks to work things out with your comrades. And in film and TV particularly, you do not have that. So I hire a line tester, and I go over and over and over the scenes and see what hits me, so that I have a certain amount of mastery by the time I get to the set, so that whatever occurs, I can respond to it, I hope, with truth. Because once I get to the set, you want to feed off of everybody else. You don't want to worry about yourself.
Now, that said, the interesting thing is that today there are a lot of young, wonderful actors, and I'm sure you work with many of them. And do you see a difference in the sort of the ethic, if you will, the work ethic, the talent that you work with today as opposed to whom you worked with before?
Well, my absentee record on Broadway is 0, so that gives you an idea of the work ethic I was brought up under, and probably my seniors like Chita Rivera, Linda Lavin, Ethel Merman, people just didn't miss shows. So I know the absentee rate of certain big shows is much, much greater than it used to be in the old days. And the other thing that has transformed our business, both for the better and the worse, is reality television. Reality television has given producers a cheap way of making some very interesting shows and some not so interesting shows. But there certainly are not actors up there, the mob wives of whatever, New Jersey. Those are the actual human beings. From an actor's point of view, these are actually can be very interesting to study these people if you're going to play them. But this is also their time on television substitutes for a series where a story well told by skilled storytellers usually fill the bill, like the brilliance of Homeland. Or tonight, actually, I'm on Covert Affairs. I play the head of Israeli intelligence on the USA channel, this wonderful series called Covert Affairs. And people can get it on demand if they have USA. So.
How exciting is that? So let's talk about your new show coming up. You're rehearsing, you're working your tail off, and there must be some reason that you've chosen and really are excited about this, because when I talked to you, you sounded like you were pretty darn excited.
Well, Ben Jonson, Marlowe, and Shakespeare were contemporaries. And this play, Volpone, which was also done in a modernized edition called, or adaptation called The Sly Fox with George C. Scott years ago. But the actual original, Volpone, written with the iambic pentameter and in verse and in dense British speech, hasn't been done in over 50 years in New York City. So it's really an event, and we have 25 actors in the company. That's a huge event. That's like having a national company that's subsidized, which we are not. But it's the Red Bull Theater, and it opens at the gorgeous Lucille Lortel Theater at 121 Christopher Street, which is probably one of our most prestigious off-Broadway houses. And the Red Bull Theater is the name of the theater that Ben Jonson had his plays in Elizabethan times, or really Jacobean times. Elizabeth would die, and James I came on board. Protestantism was established firmly in England, and we entered what's called the Jacobean age. Ben Jonson was the stepson of a bricklayer. He grew up in the poor part of London, but was sponsored to go to the Westminster School with all the rich kids, where he got this excellent classical education, and he was very, very proud of that. And it was Jonson who said that Shakespeare knew little Latin and less Greek. And Jonson prided himself on his intellect. And every morning he walked through the seedy streets of his own neighborhood, dodging pimps and charlatans and whores and beggars to arrive at the Westminster School, only to make the same trip back at night. And he truly appreciated and was ravenous about being educated. And so the references in the play are just vast to the time and the place. And I talk about Petrarch and Tasso and Dante, Guarini, Ariosto, Aretine, Cecco de Hadri. I mean, people I've had to research to do it, so that when I say the names of these people, the audience will feel that at least I know what I'm talking about.
Well, you bring up a really interesting point, because I was just about to ask you about some of these people, but I can't pronounce their names. So the question is not so much about the specifics. So it's how can we relate to this today? I mean,
it's because it's a play about greed. Also, Jonson and Shakespeare were comrades. They supposedly went to pubs together after their shows and had wit battles. Almost sounds too good to be true, but probably isn't. What did exist were the Sons of Ben, a collection of younger poets who followed and who idolized and drank with Ben Jonson because he had such a developed mind. But the play is a play about greed. It's a play about a sly fox, if you will, who pretends he's dying when he's not, to get gifts from people who, quote, love him, which they don't. They're like vultures. And each character around Volpone, which means the fox, is named after a bird, like I'm Lady Politic. But the the love name for Lady Politic is Lady Poll. And what the British called parrots were Polly. Polly want a cracker? Polly Politic. And so I asked for my costume to have reds and greens and certain primary colors. And she's always chattering on and sometimes putting together nonsense. But the most important thing is people worship money in this play. And that, like it or not, is not unlike the gold that is worshipped as God in the United States. I don't deprecate it. I'm a capitalist. And it's funny, we're talking, of course, by the time this goes on, the presidential election will be decided. But
that's right.
I'm a capitalist who believes in helping everybody. I mean, if we don't take care of our poor and our middle class, we will not see the freedoms that we have so preciously preserved for these over 200 years.
And that's something about Tovah I'm very interested in understanding. What do you attribute to your desire to care about people? You mentioned your folks, and you mentioned that they were certainly very witty people and that they instilled in you so many wonderful values. Is that part of your vitality? That they
Yes,
were
I think generosity, if you have that virtue, is a fantastic thing. It's one of the greatest pillars of Christianity, isn't it? It's better to give than receive, and all those things. And Judaism, which is my particular faith, deals with the mitzvot. You know, you can be a good Jew and not believe in God, but you cannot be a good Jew without doing mitzvahs, deeds of loving kindness. I also had this dad. I remember I got 10 cents and 50 cents, then $1 a week was my allowance. And one day he said, "Here's $5." I said, "Daddy, my allowance is only $1." He said, "You know what to do with money. You know how much to put in the piggy bank, what to buy the Three Musketeers with, what to give to charity, how much to save, how much to give to charity, how much to buy your candy bar. I have great faith in you. You know what to put away in a bank. You'll know." And I did. I've always had a green thumb, but my father was a giver, and he had a great deal of trust. And Dolly Levi, I did Hello Dolly within recent memory, and she says, money is like manure. It just sits there and stinks unless you spread it around and help young things to grow.
And speaking of young things to grow, so tell me about some of the young people whom you're involved with, who you give to your skill, your understanding of the theater. How do you share that?
Well, I teach the actor's approach to a song at Yale University for 2 weeks, every summer. I was unable to do it this summer because of a family event, but I usually do that, and that's been great fun. I rarely, but when upon request, have coached other actors, and I help other actors. Other actors write things, and I can get their scripts to the right people. I try to facilitate them, be an access for them to go to their next level, and hope that people would do that for me. Hope that people do that for me. Also, you have to be very resilient in our profession and in many professions, but in our profession, it just takes one yes, and you have to have a sense of humor about the no. You know, in my work, I will get chosen by a show, and not a theater show. There the buck stops there. You're in the room, you get the part, or you don't. But I'll be chosen by a TV show, and the producer wants me, and the show wants me, and the lead actor wants me, and the choice will go to Hollywood, and network would say, well, that's great, but she really isn't 160 pounds. She's 118 pounds, and we really want a big girl. We don't want a girl with stuffing. It's not the stage. We want a fatter person, and I'll lose the job in California, 3,000 miles away, based on my measurements. So when things like that happen, you got to hold your head up and say, this is for a reason. It's okay. I got to one of the finals on the East Coast. I just got to, lick that thing on the West Coast, and you go on to the next. That somehow it creates the space you need, and it's all for the best. But you better have that skin, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the skin of a rhinoceros, but you have to have resiliency and a sense of your own decency. No matter what. So what is it that gives you that feeling? A person has to locate that. I try to do something. I do something kind every day. It's why I work with my beloved executive assistant Morgan. Today we wrote two friends who are fighting for their lives. I mean, they're suffering from what could be a fatal disease, and you write these people, you communicate with these people, you write letters of gratitude. I was with the composer Paul Williams last night, who was nothing short of genius, and there's a documentary now that's coming out called Paul Williams is Alive, or Alive and Well, I think, and it's hilarious. It's about this brilliant boy who wrote these songs with Barbra Streisand and won his Oscar and then went into oblivion and basically has resurrected himself. And it's a very, very interesting documentary.
We're talking to Tovah Feldshuh, who is absolutely one of the most vital actors on the Broadway stage today, on television, and in the movies. And we have the joy of discussing how she gives back, along with her assistant, who have cared about people in ways that can only be described as very generous. And so let's talk a little bit more, Tovah, about what it feels like when you have people who are not doing so well, people in the theater. We went, as you know, through that period of AIDS where so many actors were afflicted with this and they died. And there were so many wonderful people who stepped up to the plate. Liza Minnelli, I spoke with her, and I know how she stepped up to the plate to help people in need with AIDS. And so here you are writing a note, caring about people who are sick. There's something that has to motivate you to do that, because again, as you indicated, you had a family who were helpful in presenting certain values.
Also, I think if you're well loved and the marriage holds together and there's an abundance of love coming towards you, you have excess. You have plenty. When somebody's grumpy and creepy to you, if you get old enough to understand that they didn't spend all night trying to figure out how to ruin your day, if you can just get your narcissism, the natural narcissism we all have in our self-interest for our own survival, if you get that to the left or the right of you instead of in the center of you, and you say, this has nothing to do with me. This person is angry at the planet, and I'm in this person's path, so I'm getting the meteor shower at the moment. If you can actually begin to organize that, particularly if you don't have parlance with that person. The other thing, just to be more concrete about this, in terms of vitality, I cut a sweat every day. I ride my bike all over New York City. I try to swim a half mile a day. Today I couldn't because I had rehearsal, but I rode, a couple of miles to rehearsal. I'll ride back at night. I have all my little lights and my helmet and a very wonderful, upset adult husband, Andrew Harris Levy, who's a brilliant attorney with DLA Piper, and very, very, really incredibly successful in his own right. And he said, "Why must you ride your bike?" I said, "How else am I going to stay lean and vital?" That's right. The door to health and alertness and processing at the rate we used to so easily when we were 30 and 40, that door gets narrower and narrower as we grow older. And either you use it or you lose it. Like it or not, that is the way it is. It doesn't mean I stop eating the 100-calorie popcorn at night. I wish I didn't, but I love it and I do it. So, yeah, is my thigh a little fatter than I'd like? Yeah. But do I have a lot of muscle mass? Tremendous amount of muscle mass.
You have to. It's your muscle mass is part of your brain. I mean, I think that's very important, and your brain is pretty big, so you're entitled to a little bit of muscle mass.
Well, cut a sweat. Cut a sweat every day. It's not where a disease starts, it's where you let it land. Cut a sweat. Right.
Well, on that note, I just want you to tell our audience one more time about the new play, and so that they can get ready to see you. And when is it going to open, and when should they expect to see Tovah in action?
It's Volpone by Ben Jonson, a very, very funny social comedy, as the Volpone, who is childish, rich, feigns sick, despairs, offers his state to hopes of several heirs, lies languishing, his parasite receives, presence of all, assures, deludes, then weaves, other cross plots, which opt themselves are told, new tricks for safety are sought, they thrive when bold, each tempts the other again, and all are sold. Now that is what was written about it so very long ago, but it's a play about greed. It's a play about Republicans versus Democrats. It's a play about the view of money in the United States as is seen through the eyes of 17th century England, and it's being done by the Red Bull Theater, www.redbulltheater.com, www.redbulltheater.com for tickets. It opens on November 27th at the gorgeous Lucille Lortel Theater, 121 Christopher Street, in the heart of the West Village. There's such fabulous, fabulous restaurants near there. You could really make a night of it. You're in an intimate theater of 200 people, and I'm playing opposite Stephen Spinella, who only won the Tony for Angels in America. So
Is that all?
Yeah, that's all. He's big stuff. Really, really, really gifted.
Just tell me one little secret. What is it like when you're next to one of these gorgeous guys on stage, and there you are playing a role, but you don't have a chance to have a little, you're jealous, you feel uncomfortable, you feel unhappy, frustrated? How can we end the show on how Tovah feels when she's next to one of these guys?
I feel pretty hot, I think as you get older, you can be as sexy as you want. This country suffers from ageism, and women in middle age are often discarded as sexual potentials anyway. So it gives us a certain freedom, Only in the soap operas was I kissing my leading man on television. However, Lady Politic, which is I do kiss Volpone right on his mouth. Right on his mouth in the trial scene. We had a howl about it today, and it was just hysterical and wonderful and just wonderful. So
well, I have to say the audience has a lot to look forward to, because if they go to see this show, they're going to get to see Tovah do a kiss that is really going to be pretty sexy. Pretty
hot. And you're going to see a play. You don't even have to read it, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to see a play that has been unable to be done in New York City for over 50 years because it is so big. It's got such a big company. So now the head of the Red Bull Theater, Jesse Berger, got it financed, got it enhanced, and he has Stephen Spinella. He has the great Alvin Epstein, who was one of the heads of the Yale Drama School. He's got me. He's got a marvelous cast of players, and we're going to look gorgeous in Clint Ramos's period costumes. So come one, come all. It's a circus of education and a shortcut to sitting there alone in your living room and trying to ferret through this great play. We will bring it to life and make it clear for you.
Well, what a joy it has been to talk to Tovah. Tovah, I wish you all the best with this play, and I look forward to interviewing you again after you're all done and talking about your vitality again, because I have a suspicion you're going to be working so hard that at the end you're just going to want to lie down in some sort of settee someplace.
maybe not. Maybe I'll finish the play and feel so great I'll run a couple of laps or walk on home. You never know. Incidentally, we end. This is a limited run. It's a 4 to 6 week run. So come one, come all for the holiday season. Don't wait.
Beautiful.
There you go.
My guest